Building a business takes work, but never hustle. And scaling your business is easier than you think. Welcome to the Joyful Scaling Podcast, the gold standard for successful Christian female entrepreneurs, where you'll learn how to live your faith in Christ as the CEO He made you to be. Whether learning how to generate your first 100K or scaling towards 7 figures, award-winning business coach and scaling expert Judy Weber will teach you the strategy and mindset you need to run a highly profitable, sophisticatedly simple business. It's an absolute joy to run. It's time for your next breakthrough. Let's go. Hello, ladies. Welcome to this episode of the Joyful Scaling Podcast. Today, we're talking about a topic that I am super passionate about, because the success of your business truly hinges on you getting your messaging right. That's why the title of this is Messaging, the secret to quality leads. And may I say quality and qualified leads. So today I'm going to be talking about what messaging is and why it's so important. What makes messaging right? And finally, some questions to ask yourself to help you get your messaging right and, accomplish this super important task. As I said, your success hinges on your messaging. Okay. Words are important. They are not to be, kind of haphazardly thrown together. Okay. And you don't have to be a copywriter to get this. So grab a paper and pen. You're going to want to take notes. And then beyond the note taking, of course, you need to take action. And you can begin by simply answering the questions that I'm going to be peppering throughout and then summarizing at the end. All right? Ready? Let's go. All right. What is messaging? Well, of course, I Googled. I love looking into definitions and studying words, as a lawyer, right? As a trial lawyer. And also in that context, I wrote briefs to higher court. So I was always about my word choice and what am I going to highlight and what am I going to, not highlight, right? And how am I going to say things? And then when I went in-house working as general counsel and dealing with the inner clients, right? My fellow employees and reviewing contracts, words are very high on my radar because I know how important they are. And one of the purposes in bringing this to you is I want you to kind of get a peek into how I think as a lawyer and now as a CEO so that you can begin to think that way as well. Okay, so what is messaging? I Googled to find out how this term is defined. And of course, as expected, I saw a plethora, gosh, I love that word, of interesting definitions. Here's one. Messaging is the set of channels over which brands and customers communicate with each other. Well, that doesn't tell me much. It's kind of silly, right? That kind of sounded like text messaging. Okay, next definition. The set of practices that define how a company will deliver its value proposition and communicate its business values. That's kind of sort of close. That's kind of sort of close to what I would think. But here is how I define the messaging that I'm talking about, which is really your brand messaging. Okay, here's what it is. It's the art of using the right words to communicate the very essence of your brand. Okay, let me say that again. Messaging or brand messaging, that's synonymous. That is the art of using the right words to communicate the very essence. Oh, I love that. The very essence of your brand. And so wherever you are, in person, online, website, social, wherever you are, your customers, your clients, your potential referral partners, collab partners, right? They have like seconds to hear you if you're in person, or read or take in the marketing you're putting out there, the messaging you're putting out there. They only have seconds to make a gut decision about whether you are worth their time, whether it is valuable for them to potentially engage with you in some way. Okay, that's what messaging is, and that's why it's so important. Let me give you some stats also, highlighting the fact that messaging is, some say one of the most, I say it is the most pivotal way to build your business, build a qualified customer base, and prospect base. Okay, let me give you some stats. About 64% of consumers say that the primary reason they connect with a brand is shared values. Oh, I love it. And when I think about the brands that I connect with, it is their values, right? So are you putting your values out there? 64%. That's how they connect with a brand. Do they think like me? Do they hold important things as I hold them? Do we agree on that? Okay. Share your values. Put it out there. Second stat, brand consistency, right? Saying things over and over again, not being afraid of the repetition because these are things that you stand for and stand on. Brand consistency leads to an average increase in revenue of 23%. That's significant, right? And then a study found this: when evaluating brands, people rely more on emotions and experiences rather than logic and facts. And I love that. I think as women, that totally speaks to us. If we think about the brands that we really connect with and purchases that we make. Is it really like when we're hiring someone, whether it's a weight coach, business coach, I don't know, whatever it is, even going to a cooking school, for example, which I'm thinking I need, right? But when we evaluate the different brands, are we really looking at where they went to school? Or are we considering kind of how we feel when we see them in videos? Or how they've communicated to us via email, right? For me, it's definitely, I rely totally more on emotions and the experience I get from being with this person or seeing their brand rather than where they went to school and all the other logic and facts. Because at the end of the day, brand messaging, ladies, it really encapsulates the core elements of your brand, right? In a way that is appealing to the people that you care about, your best clients, your referral partners, your potential collab partners. You appeal to their hearts, even over their minds, right? I mean, look, I am an intellectual person. Like, I very much value brains and real results and success. So I don't want to diminish the importance of accomplishment, education, experience, all of that. But really, we connect by way of our hearts, right? So I want you to think about that in your word choice. Are you allowing yourself to be vulnerable enough to paint your brand, not just as this, a corporate entity kind of thing, but I mean, you're a person, and in many cases for service providers like you are the brand. So are you allowing the people you really care about to see an authentic and transparent you? You meaning your business, you in your business, okay? Now, on this point, I've alluded to it, but it's interesting to think about, who we're seeking to attract. It's not just your clients, referrals, collab partners, but also your inner clients, your team. And if you don't have a team yet, don't worry, that's coming, okay? But in other words, your branding, right, of which messaging is the most important part, not your colors, fonts, or logos, branding really starts from within the company. So again, your company culture, your values, your mission, that really sets the foundation for how people, whether inside working with you or outside potentially to hire you to work with you, it's the foundation for how people experience your brand, right? And where they place you in the market of possibilities. Okay? Now, let's talk about what makes your messaging right. Well, there are two things to keep in mind, two sources, if you will, of your messaging. And the first is you. When you're thinking about your brand messaging, the words you're going to use, the experiences and emotions that you hope to evoke, you need crystal clarity around who you are. You need absolute crystal clarity around who you are and what you stand for. your values, your mission, your vision. I've talked about that. The why are you in business? And that includes your unique perspective on your industry, your work, your proprietary methods and process, right? Like how you actually help your clients get results. It also includes your thought leadership. Those that succeed, I want you to understand you are a thought leader. You are not a copy and paste of someone else. So when I talk in terms of thought leadership, what is your philosophy about your industry and about your work specifically? And that would include things like calling out the myths that too many believe. It could be competitors believe and implement, and also some of your, best client prospects, right? What do they believe that is wrong, in your opinion? Stand up against it. How are others getting it wrong? And then clearly state your unique take, your unique insight. And that's got to be truly different from what the masses are saying. In fact, I want to suggest to you that what you say needs to be different than what anyone's ever said before, at least in the way it's presented. So before I go into that second source that you need to always keep in mind when you are putting your messaging together, I want you to understand that when I say unique insights and languaging, like something that no one's ever said before, it's really not as hard as that may seem. So decide right now, okay, I can do this. It's not beyond me, okay? Remember, scripture tells us that there's nothing new under the sun, right? Lamentations. There is nothing new under the sun. So I'm not talking about creating something like a concept that is new, as in like you're creating a whole new word, right? But what I am talking about is you're putting out into the world concepts. You're putting together words. Your word choice is in a way that hasn't been done before. And I want to give you an example so that you can fully understand what I'm saying. Pursue the impossible. I love to use that hashtag, pursue the impossible. That's the name of my upcoming book. That is my life and business mantra. Pursue the impossible. And I can tell you that I was shocked that that phrase, pursue the impossible, was not already a hashtag on Instagram. A few had used it, but under 100, right? And that I was surprised that I could purchase pursuetheimpossible.co. like that's a concept that underscores my work and my approach to business for Christian women. We are not good little girls who hang out in the sidelines. Oh no, the Lord God made us, his daughters, to stand out, to be powerful, to use our voices with boldness and courage. That is my take on entrepreneurship for high achieving women of faith like you and me. And that, pursue the impossible, and everything it stands for, is part of my core messaging, right? It's a new, different, standout insight or perspective and message, especially when it comes, that would be a standout message for women generally. But when you segment down to Christian women, it is all the more standout different, right? So, what do you stand for, my sister? What is your business's core values? And what is your proprietary process or method for how you get your clients results? Okay, so you are the first source of your messaging. The second is this, your best client. Emphasis there on the word best. Okay, others call this your ideal client or your ICA. I used to do that as well, like ICA, your ideal client avatar. Ugh, I never liked that word. But anyway, I found for myself and in working with my clients that the best way to think of who am I talking to is to think of your best clients, the ones you love to work with and who love and respect and value you, right? They do what you ask them to do. They don't call you at all hours of the day and night. And they get results. They value you as the one helping them achieve the results they're after, right? Whatever those results are in your work, in your industry. So my question is, and this is not the first time I've posed this question, and you might see if you are a loyal listener to the podcast that I talk about this issue a lot. Who is your best client? Do you have her clear in your mind? Both the must-haves and the must-not-haves. In other words, have you established standards and boundaries around who you will work with and who you will not? Okay. So as an example of the ones that I work with resourceful, committed, smart, accomplished women, meaning they're already successful. They've achieved some level of success before, whether in schooling or on the job or entrepreneurship, right? They've done things and they've reached success. And they're motivated and excited and optimistic about their business, even if they're just starting out. Why? Because they've done big things before, like hard things, like graduated with advanced degrees or made it to corporate at higher levels of management, right? Or they've opened a business and they're doing well and they want to go do better, right? My best client understands they need to invest in their business to grow and scale it efficiently. And my best client does her due diligence ahead of time to make sure she's investing wisely. And first and foremost, my best clients know and love the Lord Jesus Christ. They acknowledge his call on their life to serve people with their God-given gifts through their business, and they seek to grow their faith in him. That's who I work with. Those are my boundaries, the must-haves. Now, these are the type of women that I do not work with. I do not and will not work with excuse makers, blamers, those with a victim mentality, those who are lazy, those who don't value coaching generally or working with me as a coach specifically, those who think they know everything already, those that just want to try it out but they're not committed to their business, those who search for bargain deals. They're all about the price. Just tell me the price. Just tell me the price. And finally, they download all the freebies. They have piles of them printed out in their office, but they never, ever implement a thing. At least not consistently. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. So there you have a prime example. The haves and the have-nots, right? The must-haves and the ain't no way, right? So have you established those parameters for your business? If not, get that very important task on your calendar to be done this week. Please. Now, if you've hesitated to niche down to a specific best client, okay, and I know there are some of you out there, if that is you, let me reassure you, when you decide and you get specific on who your best client is, that will be one of the most profitable decisions you will ever make in your business. So please hear me on that. Because without getting specificity and clarity around your best client, you are talking to the world. You're talking to everybody, and no one's listening. Because they don't hear it. It's like the teacher in the old Charlie Brown shows. Wah, 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 wah. Right? So when you have a best client identified, these standards, these boundaries, these characteristics are clearly in mind, then what happens is you know them intimately. Okay, and I know that word is associated with, oh, gee, that's a little familiar. But no, I really mean it. You've got to know your best clients intimately, meaning that you know their urgent problems. You know what's preventing them from getting the results they want, and not only what their problem is, right? So listen, I gotta pause for a second here. For so long, when I kept hearing that, like, oh, what is your ideal client's problem? I'd be like, duh, who doesn't know what the problem of their best clients are? But all these years later, and after working with literally hundreds of ladies, like I've come to understand the depth of that seemingly simple question. Sister, do you really know the root of the issue that's causing your best clients' problems? Okay, I'm going to give you an example. Me as a business coach, all right? A lot of my clients believe their problem is, I just need to find the right marketing strategy so I can get more leads. And if I could just do that, if I could just get more leads, I'd be generating more revenue. I just know it. Okay? But here's where they think that's the problem, but I know the real problem. Because of myself and working, like I said, with so many women, I know that virtually every strategy has the potential to work. So the issue is not which one's the right one, but it's about the implementation. Are you implementing? How are you doing that? Are you being consistent? As opposed to trying a little bit of this, a little bit of that, constantly changing your mind between this strategy and that strategy, right? So it's not just, I need the right strategy. And as far as leads, that can't be the right answer if You don't know how to get the right people as a lead, right? So there's a bunch of unqualified people that you're getting in. Oh, but you feel better because your email list is growing or your followers is growing. Who cares if they're not the right people, right? And what if you have great leads, but you don't know how to nurture them? Or maybe you don't know how to convert those leads into clients. And if any of those things are true, all the leads in the world aren't going to solve your problem, right? And so once you've identified the actual problem of your best client in your marketing, are you talking specifically to that very real problem? Meaning how it's showing up for your best clients, that problem or those problems on the daily, right? How is it showing up for them? And I'll give you an example in just a moment. But when you call out your best clients, who they are, and you show them their problem by reference to what's really going on behind the scenes, not only in their business, but even generally in their life, how that problem is impacting them, right? And so that's going to depend on what you do and what industry you're in. But I'm not talking about specifically, how the work that you do, that problem is impacting them, but how is it impacting their life generally, okay? When you do that, that's when your messaging resonates. That's when the right people see what you're putting out in the world, and that's when they are drawn to it. And they're drawn to you, okay? All right, the last part of today's episode, I want to lay out some questions for you to ask yourself so that you can dial in your messaging. And so a lot of this is going to be summary, but I will be, I'm sure, throwing in some little extras. So you may want to listen back. I would encourage you to do that because the first time you listen through, you are bound to miss something. So let's dive into summarizing and highlighting some of the things you need to get clarity on so that your messaging brings quality leads and, in fact, your qualified best clients. Okay, here they are. The questions to ask yourself. First, what are your core values? Next, what do you stand for? Next, what are your values, your mission and vision, right? And I guess that's kind of the values is already said, but what is your mission? Like, why are you in business? What's your mission? My mission, as it relates to my Joyful Scaling Mastermind, is to help 100 accomplished Christian women scale to 7 figures. That's my vision, right? That's my vision, and my mission is to up-level the way Christian women do business, right? And so I'm establishing the gold standard, the creme de la creme in business coaching for you, the Christian woman. What is your mission? What is your vision? Okay. Next, what is your unique perspective on your industry and your unique perspective on the work you do within that industry? Next, what are your proprietary methods or process, like how you actually help your clients get results? What is your step-by-step, or what pillars are important for you as you help your client get the results they want? Next, what is your philosophy about your industry and your work? So you have a perspective on it, and then you have a philosophy about it. And if that's like overwhelming, like, oh my God, what a philosophy, just sit, and whether like me, you like pen to paper, or if you prefer to tap on the keys of your laptop, just think about, perspective. Again, what's wrong? What are people getting wrong in your industry? And as far as philosophy, when you identify what's wrong, how do you want to do things, or how do you see things? And that's your philosophy. So they are related, and they kind of speak one to the other. But anyway, I don't have time to get into all of mine, but my perspective, one of the things I'll say is my perspective, and I alluded to it earlier, that I think that there has been no resource, no model of Jesus loving, like deeply, passionately knowing and loving Jesus, and high goal setting in the entrepreneurial space. I see too many Christian women holding back and playing small because they're dealing with this guilt around making money. And so there's almost, for those that step out and say, I have these big goals, then, it seems that they get bastardized by the Christian community generally, or they feel that way anyway. They're intimidated somewhat by that, whether it's in the mind or if it's really happening. Or a lot of times Christians kind of put their Christianity aside, whether front facing or even inside, and they're following, well, either if you're not faithful, then you're pagan, pagan coaches talking about woo-woo stuff. So, my philosophy is you need to go all in on who Christ made you to be. And then and only then will you be able to step fully into all that he made you to be and fulfill the purpose. And if he's called you to business, to really step into your role as a CEO boldly, without apology, right? Because that's who God made you to be. You're a success. Why are we playing small when it comes to entrepreneurship, right? So perspective and philosophy. And then the other part of this too is, like I mentioned earlier, I just want to emphasize it so you don't forget, what myths do you want to debunk? What things have your competitors gotten wrong? You don't want to ever call them out by name. No need to do that. It's not professional. But you can call out what they're doing that you just think is wrong. It's not a benefit to your clients. All right, next question to ask yourself. Again, we talked a lot about this. Who's your best client? Who is she? What demographics, like her age, marital status? Does she have kids? What's her income? Where does she live? That kind of thing. Demographics. And psychographics. Psychographics. What does she think? How does she think? What's important to her? What's her attitude? What are her aspirations? What excites her? What motivates her? And here I'm talking about generally, right? Again, not necessarily is she motivated to lose weight, for example, but what else matters to her, right? What matters in life to her? So there is that specificity as it relates to your work, but then there's more broadly, because our clients live. They have a life outside of our little corner of it. Okay? Now, you might be saying, well, Judy, not all my clients are going to be the same. And you're right. Of course, no two people are exactly the same. But when you put your brain to work, thinking back, for example, to your past clients, your past best clients, what you will find when you do the work that only 1% to 2% are ever going to do, I hope that's you, when you do that, you're going to find patterns and similarities. And so I want you to put your brain to work to find that. And again, even if you're in the earlier stages of business and you're like, I don't really have best clients to consider, I want you to decide ahead of time on these things. Who is your best client? And it's going to be a guess. It's going to be your best educated guess. And hint, hint, our best client tends to be us. Your best client is probably you at some point in the past. All right? All right, and as part of that, again, who's your best client? The must-haves and the no-ways, right? All right, next, what are the problems she's experiencing as it relates specifically to your work? And how does that problem show up, not only in her work, impacting, whatever your work is with her, but in her life generally as well, right? And again, the weight loss example, the problem. Maybe her problem is she's tried everything, but she just can't keep the weight off. It's up and down and all around, right? Well, how is that roller coaster weight gain and loss? How is that showing up in her life generally? Maybe she wears big clothes because her confidence is way down. She wants to hide. She feels less than, not enough. And that's impacted her marriage in this way, blah, blah, blah. And in her work that way, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. So think of at least 5 real life experiences that your best client is going through right now, today, that highlights her urgent problem. And which will, the idea here is you're identifying these real life experiences and you are casting them in a way that helps her to see that the time she needs you is right now. Like now is the time. Okay, that's huge. All right. Well, I hope those questions are helpful for you as you begin to dial in the messaging that's going to get you the right people in your pipeline, really, as leads. Okay. Now, there is one other part of messaging that we haven't yet touched on, and I want to briefly here, and that is your value proposition. And some also refer to this as your I help statement. I help so-and-so do this and that without blah, 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 right? You have those little I help templates. Now, that's all well and fine. But as you know, if you listen for a while, you know that I am, and I always have been, unconventional. I never wanted to blend in. I never wanted to follow the herd. I never wanted to just be realistic or do what's expected. I always wanted to stand out. I always wanted to be the best. I always wanted to be different. So right now, I do not teach value proposition, right? That to me, like I'm a lawyer and I'm smart. I like to think I'm smart. My IQ's not high, but I'm smart, right? And I'm ambitious. And I like big words, but for some reason, value proposition, I don't know, those two words just always made my eyes glaze over. I'm like, what is that? And so that's not something that I teach, right? And I'm becoming less and less wild and excited about I help statements. Okay. Now, each of those things, they can certainly be useful, but they're not, and please hear me on this, they are not the be all end all. Especially if the things we've talked about today up to this point are not identified. They're not well thought out. They're not intentionally incorporated into your marketing. And so when you think about how you can tell the world, whether on your website, in social bio or profile, or when meeting someone at a networking event, like, what do? Don't feel like you have to stick to the usual, elevator pitch or I help statements. Okay, and I have an example of Evernote. Are we familiar with Evernote, right? Evernote, where you can keep all your notes organized and in one place, right? So here's an example of how Evernote tells the world what it does very succinctly and I think very powerfully, okay? And here's how Evernote does it. Your notes organized effortlessly, right? Evernote, your notes, period, organized, period, effortlessly, period. I just love that. In just 4 little words, you immediately get a picture of what you get with Evernote and how it can benefit you, right? So think about that. How can you answer the question, what do you do? Or why you? Okay. Get creative. I know you're creative. Even though you could be right brain, I know there's a left brain active in your brain, right? Okay, the next thing I want to briefly mention before we end is something called brand voice. Okay, messaging is more than just the words you say. It's how you say it, right? And the how you say it, your brand voice, injects personality into your brand. So just very generally, are you silly, passionate, professional, funny, casual? I don't know. What word fits your brand? What personality? And then craft the way you speak, the words, but more importantly than the actual words, how you use the words, right, into your own voice. So as an example, do you use, $100,000 words? Like you want to, maybe you're a consultant, and so your clientele are corporate and they want you to speak very, very refined and those $1,000 words or $100,000 words, right? So your brand voice should absolutely cater to what they're looking for, right? Your brand is not silly. Your brand is the highest and the most excellence in the way of professionalism and corporate, right? But maybe your brand is a lot more down to earth. So maybe you speak very plainly, right? Or maybe, something else to think about. Do you use slang or no? Okay. Like for me, and just give you a very brief example, as far as brand voice, I use hun a lot in my emails, especially, and in my social comments, right? Hey, hun, how you doing? Or hey, sister. So it's very familiar, very friendly, because we're family. And yet I am catering to the educated, accomplished woman. So while I use that familiar term, hun or sister, I also use words that professionals know and use. So how about you? What's your brand personality, and how does that personality get reflected by way of your voice? Okay. Now, this element of a brand voice helps to establish a connection. It's a point of relatability that combines with the other things we've talked about to really fill out and complete your brand messaging to create a unique brand experience. That's what branding comes down to, and marketing, really. The experience, how we make people feel. And that, my friends, is messaging, right? Messaging that works. Messaging that results in more of the right eyeballs on your marketing, more ears perked up because of the things you talk about, because of your perspective, because it's clear that you know them, you understand their situation, they readily see that you get them where they are right now, what they're dealing with, and where they want to go. And you do that through the words you use and how you use it, right? Through your thought leadership, your unique perspective on your industry and the work you do with your best clients. And so with all of that, they begin to trust you. They begin to trust that you are the expert who can help them, right? Your marketing, because your messaging is dialed in, makes clear who you work with and who you don't. And because you're upfront about the boundaries that you've set, you're going to love this. Okay, write this down. Because you're upfront and clear in your messaging about the boundaries you've set, your best clients self-qualify in, while those that are not a fit, right? They don't fit the bill, they self-qualify out, which is exactly what you want. And when you do that, in the end, you get quality, qualified leads. Because you've taken the time that, again, only the top 1 or 2% ever will. And what is that time? What are you talking about, Jude? That you power think through the questions I've laid out for you in this episode. And when you do that, you're taking the action of a true CEO. You're stepping out authentically and courageously. Because look, a CEO makes decisions and then commits to them, and then they implement, right? So set boundaries around who you're going to work with, who you won't work with, without apology. You are a CEO, and these are the decisions you've made. End of story. And if that is you, brava, sister. Success is yours. Not it's going to be yours. It is yours. It's right in front of you. Because really, at the end of the day, it's really quite simple. The Lord God himself called you to entrepreneurship. And with that, you know that he's going to fulfill his promises, including the promise to equip you where he's called you. And so with that, you can rest, my sister. Your success is inevitable. Do you believe that? I hope so, because it's true. Are you willing to do the work required to achieve that success that's right in front of you? I hope so, right? In this episode and the nearly 300 others, I have always sought to offer you the very best information, strategies, and insight that I can, right? Presenting the strategies and addressing the mindset that you need to reach that inevitable success that God has for you. But again, consuming the content alone isn't going to get you there. You've got to implement. And you've got to go to God daily, seeking his wisdom. And when you do, oh my goodness, the impossible things you will accomplish will amaze even you. And that is my prayer for you, my sister. So I pray that there have been aha moments and breakthroughs for you here, that you've learned something, that you've taken notes, and that more than anything, you're going to implement. You're going to go to God. You're going to spend that time power thinking in the Lord's presence, asking for his downloads and wisdom to be imparted to you. And then make those decisions, commit to them, and implement unapologetically, courageously, boldly, just as he's called you to. All right. Thank you for listening. If you have not yet left a review, would you please do so? I want to climb those ranks, and I want to hit 100,000 downloads. We are so close. We are so close. But if you have gotten value from this episode, would you consider taking a snapshot right now while you're listening and drop it on social, right? Would you be willing to do that? We are still in the midst of our 300th episode giveaway. We have $1,500 worth of prizes. I'm going to be announcing those winners live Thursday, September 1st at 11 a.m. Eastern on my weekly Thriver Thursday live show on my personal Facebook, on my LinkedIn, and my YouTube. And lately I've been going on Instagram as well. Don't want to leave you out. So for all the details, head on over to judyweber.co/296-2. Again, judyweber.co/podcast. I'm sorry, Judy Weber Co. Where am I saying? Let's start again. judyweber.co/296.2. Or you can just go over to judyweber.co/podcast and find episode 296 for all the details about entering. All right. But all it is writing a review, right? Taking a picture of that review before you hit submit and putting it on social and tagging me at Judy Weber Co. All right, ladies, I've got to run. Have a beautiful and blessed rest of your week and reach out to me. Let me know your biggest aha on this episode. Thanks again. Well, that wraps up today's episode. Hey, if you found today's show valuable, I would so appreciate it if you would take a minute and give a rating with a review. If you desire, like me, to elevate the way Christian women do business, help spread the word about this show. We need more ladies listening to the message that when you build a faith-fueled business, even the impossible is possible. Now, if you're ready to do big things and you're interested in learning how you and I can work together, there are two ways. First, if you're generating six figures and you want to scale your business, join the Joyful Scaling Mastermind waitlist. You'll get sneak peeks inside to learn what it's really like being a part of the group. Sign up to get on that waitlist at judyweber.co/joyfulscaling. And if you're instead in the earlier stages of business and you want to get to your first 100K, the Joyful Six Figures Accelerator is coming soon. You can get on the waitlist at builda100kbiz.com. And at the same time, you'll be reserving your seat to my soon-to-be released 3-part video series called Build a 100K Business in 12 months or less. Again, go to builda100kbiz.com. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.